Welcome back to our podcast, Don't Chew With Your Mouth Open. Thank you for joining us for another episode. As you know, we're on our road to 1,000 subscribers. For those of you who subscribe to the podcast and enjoyed our content, thank you for your partnership with us as we continue to grow and support the advent of wealth creation, social mobility, finance and investment in the developing world. For those of you who are watching for the first time, thank you for being with us. Please like, share, subscribe as we continue to talk through our various episodes and topics in this podcast. Let's chat. Welcome to our episode of our podcast, Don't Chew With Your Mouth Open, where we'll discuss business, economics, finance, investments, and wealth creation for the global south. So I recently had a conversation with a wealth manager. She manages portfolios for high net worth individuals in Europe. And I had a conversation with him about how he saw the trends moving around wealth creation and wealth management, what he saw as the key lessons around how to manage and build wealth. It was interesting because he's been at this for over 50 years, old man, and I was able to have this good quality time with him. One of the things he said that those who build long-lasting financial stability are those who aspire to be wealthy without the desire to be silver. And that struck me. The inspiration to want to create, to build, the inspiration to want to put yourself in a better social class, the aspiration to try and make yourself more than what you are today is a admirable trait. However, the desire then to be seen is what negates that trait. He focused largely on what was appearances versus reality. That a lot of people speak about wealth creation, but what they're actually speaking about is their insecurities and desire for affirmation. That somebody can say to you, I want to be rich, but that's not really the goal. The goal is to satisfy a certain lack or insecurity in their lives. And that, he said, was the difference between those who built long-lasting wealth and those who are there for the interim and then depreciate over time. These are two separate mindsets: the aspiration to create wealth and the desire to be seen. And so after he said this, I started, as they say, pick his brain. What did he mean? Simply put, he spoke about a client of his, net worth of about $8 billion. He said, if you were to meet that individual, you wouldn't even know he and his family is worth that much. Initially, I was like, that has to be a European client. And he exposed to me that it was an African client who had amassed that amount of wealth. And yet, you won't read about them in the newspapers. You won't see them on TV. Some people prefer privacy more than others. But his view was, his focus was not what people thought about him, how the world saw him and his family. His focus was on ensuring the financial stability of the generations of his family to come. And therein struck the lesson that when you are escaping poverty, there's certain elements of insecurity that follow with you. And when you begin to make certain amounts of money, you begin to then use that money to address that insecurity, to address that lack. And I often give this example of myself. When I grew up, bacon was a luxury for adults only. And if we did have it, it was over weekends. So when I started working, one of the things I did was buy large amounts of bacon and eat that by myself. Now, when I tell that story now, it sounds very silly. But at the time, I was satisfying something in me. The desire to eat bacon. That access to something that I couldn't get when I was younger. Now that I have access to it, I wanted to indulge and continue to eat more and more of it. Similarly, when we grew up, we ate a lot of polony. When I was in varsity, polony was the staple. Today, I can't stand the smell of polony because it reminds me of the times where I felt like I was not a person, where I felt like I wasn't growing, I wasn't strong. And as a result, I now have linked polony to my struggle, poverty, difficult state. Similarly with everybody else, there are certain activities we link to that, and we carry that with us, and we pass that on to other people in our lives. And we then use that as crutches to live a particular way. We buy expensive things, we act in a particular way, we conduct ourselves in certain ways irrationally. And the reason we do that is because there's something we feel that's unseen in us that needs to be seen. Some of us express that outwardly in how we dress, the cars we drive, where we send our children to school. We see ourselves at a particular class level, and as a result, we have to show that we're at that class level. However, these activities erode wealth. They erode our income. They take away from the futures that we are trying to build. So what then builds wealth is the disciplines around dealing with our mental and emotional states, the ones that cause us to make bad decisions, the ones that superimpose the history of our lives on our decision making. And those decisions then lead us to waste and ill discipline. So part of creating wealth is ensuring your mental and your emotional states are healthy. Part of growing your income, part of escaping poverty is ensuring your mental and your emotional states are healthy. It's difficult to live in an environment and have a different mindset. It's difficult to come from a difficult circumstance and have a success or building or ambitious mindset. However, this wealth manager, as I spoke to him, emphasized that some of the best wealth creators and wealth maintainers in the world are those who've escaped poverty, the ones who have done difficult things to get into that position. The danger comes with their grandchildren and their children who haven't faced the struggles they have faced. So the lesson for us here is, let's not focus on the image side of things. Let's focus on the practical side of things. The image will always be shown to us. The banks will always give us black cards. The car hires will always make sure we're driving top range vehicles. You're always going to be invited and given VIP access to the best parties. But all of that is to cause you to become a consumer of high-end luxury goods. And that takes away from wealth creation if not done right. So the house you build, where you live, the car you drive, how you conduct yourself on a day-to-day basis, and lessons and the principles around that are important. We can shine and aspire to shine and do well without the desire of being seen. So we can shine or show. So we now have a choice. If you're shining, it's the stuff that most people don't recognize. It's the budgeting, it's the communication about money, it's the delayed gratification, it's the foresight in saving, it's the investment into cash generating assets, businesses. That's the shining. The showing is the consumer part. The high-end watches, shirts, bags, the high-end vehicles, living in expensive neighborhoods, albeit you don't need to. We have no problem with people or you expressing yourself in that manner. However, it must not come at the cost of your future. So let's focus on the showing, on the shining part. Let's strive to build ourselves rather than to show people that we are building ourselves. Part of the mantra of this podcast is exactly that. Don't chew with your mouth open. We don't want to see what's in your mouth. Chew with it closed. Enjoy what you're doing without having to have cameras and lights around your life. There are certain people who make a living that way, so be it. However, the rest of us who live in a world where we are not in media or entertainment have the choice. The choice to be the gentleman who is worth $8 billion, lives an $8 billion lifestyle. I asked this wealth manager how this gentleman lives. He watches Formula One in Monaco. He does a couple of international holidays a year with his family. He opts to hire, not own, a private jet. And that's the quality of life he lives. However, he still maintains that he doesn't shine. One of the most amazing experiences in my life is when I went to Lagos. And when you go to Lagos, you manage to see certain parts of the city. And one part of the city that really intrigued me was Banana Island. Banana Island is where the Dangotes and the very wealthy people live. It was fascinating to me how much wealth can be created by a group of people. Yet, very little is written about Banana Island. Very little is written about the quality of life these individuals live. As we got to the airport, I stopped counting at 30 private jets. And that was astounding to me. Not much is written about the way wealthy people in that part of the world live. And yet they enjoy the luxuries of wealth. They fly private, they travel all over the world, they engage in meaningful business practices. And yet they value their privacy. They value in producing results rather than showing. Having met some of these high-earning Nigerians, it was quite evident that what they really prioritized was different from what somebody who was to pretend to have money is prioritizing. Privacy. Someone who's looking to deal with their insecurities is prioritizing. They were prioritizing the education of their children. They were prioritizing ensuring the security of what they've built, the influence on the relationships, both with financial people and the state, multilateral engagements across the continent. And that is how they conduct themselves. Whereas on the other side, we have individuals who've made some money, who focus on the quality of car, the houses, the luxury bags, and so on and so forth. And that was quite a lesson for me, that the value is always in the shining, not the showing. So aspire to be wealthy, aspire to be rich, aspire to be a multi-millionaire, a billionaire. However, in doing that, focus on the shining side. Aspire to shine. Don't aspire to show. Because it's in showing where we lack to deal with the difficult things in our lives, the insecurities in our lives. So thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope it has helped you. And for those of you who are continuing on this journey with us to build wealth, we are trusting that you will focus on the principles of wealth creation and that you will prioritize the shining and not the showing. We look forward to having you in our next podcast. Cheers.